Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar says it's difficult to have unidimensional relationships in the contemporary world. Highlights historicity of New Delhi's ties with Moscow and Washington on sidelines of Munich conference. India provides humanitarian aid to Zambia amid cholera outbreak, sends purification supplies, chlorine tablets and ORS sachets. India showcases its offensive capabilities. Indian Air Force displays unparalleled firepower at Pokhran through Exercise Vayu Shakti-24, while Indian Navy to host the international maritime event Milan 2024 from Tuesday. President Joe Biden asserts NATO is critical to U.S.'s survival as defense spending debate takes center stage, urges Congress to pass legislation on new weapons shipment for Ukraine. And on to the details now. The three-day Munich Security Conference draws to a close on Sunday. Dubbed the Davos of Defense, the global conference, the head of state and government officials meet to discuss ongoing conflicts and potential future ones. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar has said other countries shouldn't have a problem with New Delhi buying Russian oil. Dr. Jaishankar added it's a true feat of diplomacy to have so many solid partnerships, and it should be admired. He was speaking at the panel discussion with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and German Foreign Minister M. Baerbock next to him, explaining that India is smart to have so many options. Our correspondent Trent Murray has more from Munich.
He also joined a panel discussion here alongside his American and German counterpart. The panel was called Growing the Pie, Seizing Shared Opportunities. And he made quite an interesting statement, I thought, around Delhi's international worldview and where it sees itself in the world and its relationships with other countries.
Your question, do we have multiple options? Answer is yes. Is that a problem? Why should it be a problem? If I'm smart enough to have multiple options, you should be admiring me. You shouldn't be criticizing. Now, is that a problem for other people? I don't think so. I don't think so, certainly in this case and in that case, because, look, we try to explain what are the different pulls and pressures which countries have.
Let me read some of it to you. He said it's important to distinguish between being non-West and anti-West. I would categorize India as a country that is non-West, but has an extremely strong relationship with Western countries, which are getting better by the day. Trent Murray for DD India, Munich, Germany.
Well, on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference in Germany, External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar on Saturday held a number of bilaterals. One of the major highlights was his meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and with former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Both the leaders exchanged views on contemporary politics. External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar also held a meeting with his Saudi Arabian counterpart Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud and discussed the West Asia situation and the strategic partnership. While meeting his Norway counterpart Espen Barth Eide, Jaishankar said he had a big picture chat with him in Munich. Let us hear more from a correspondent on India's engagements at the Munich Security Engagement.
Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar, he has been one very busy minister. Let me just read some of the one-on-one meetings he's had with foreign minister counterparts. He has met with the US, EU, Argentina, Canada, Germany, Belgium, Portugal and Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Trent Murray for DD India, Munich, Germany.
Well, Russia, Ukraine and West Asia dominated the discussions on the second day of the conference. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there is an extraordinary opportunity in the coming months for Israel to normalize ties with its Arab neighbors. He also emphasized the need for a creation of a Palestinian state.
The US government is working to secure a mega deal that will see the ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel normalize. During a panel discussion, Antony Blinken said there were genuine efforts led by Arab countries to revitalize the Palestinian Authority so it can be more effective in representing the Palestinians.
I think there's an extraordinary opportunity before Israel in the months ahead to actually, once and for all, end that cycle. And it's because there's some new facts that didn't exist before when there were efforts to make peace between Israelis and Palestinians, starting with the fact that virtually every Arab country now genuinely wants to integrate Israel into the region, to normalize relations if they haven't already done so, to provide security assurances and commitments so that Israel can feel more safe and more secure.
While in Munich, Blinken also met Israeli President Isaac Herzog and discussed efforts to reach a hostage deal. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Saturday lauded the efforts at peace and resolution that US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been putting in through his visits to the region.
Particularly, I think all of us follow the enormous efforts which Tony is putting in right now. We must be clear that what happened on October 7th was terrorism. No caveats, no justification, no explanation. It was terrorism. Eventually, there has to be a permanent fix, a long-term fix. Otherwise, we're going to see a recurrence. And I think today, certainly India has long believed in a two-state solution. We have maintained that position for many decades.
The hostage deal and the humanitarian pause are seen as instrumental in helping advance conversations, which had been frozen in the immediate aftermath of the terrorist attack but have resumed in recent months.
Well, as fears mount over the impact of misinformation on democracy, world's biggest technology companies have pledged to fight deceptive artificial intelligence-generated content from interfering with global elections this year. A group of 20 tech companies, including Meta, Microsoft, announced at the Munich Security Conference that they would work together to combat the creation and spread of content designed to mislead voters, such as deepfake images, videos and audio. The rapid growth of generative artificial intelligence, which can create text, images and video in seconds in response to prompts, has heightened fears that the new technology could be used to sway major elections this year, as more than half the world's population is set to head to the polls. And updates now in Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine has urged allies to send more weapons, as President Volodymyr Zelensky said there is a shortage of weapons in Ukraine on Saturday. He was speaking at the Munich gathering.
Our actions are limited only by the sufficiency and length of the range of our strengths, but what does not depend on us. And Avdiivka situation proves this exactly. Dear friends, unfortunately, keeping Ukraine in the artificial deficit of weapons, particularly in deficit of artillery and long-range capabilities, allows Putin to adapt to the current intensity of the war.
Well, Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani reacted on it, saying Italy is ready to offer more military aid to Ukraine, adding Rome had already approved 8 support packages for Kyiv at Munich gathering on Saturday.
Italy approved the package number 8 on military support. I think that they are arriving in Ukraine in these days, and we're ready for doing more. The message to Russia is very clear. Ukraine will be member of the European Union, and then we are working for having Ukraine member of NATO.
Meanwhile, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said we do not want a conflict between Russia and NATO. The reaction comes days after Donald Trump said he would encourage Russia to attack any NATO member that did not meet its defense spending quota.
Die Drohung durch Russland ist real. Darum muss unsere Fähigkeit zur Abschreckung und Verteidigung glaubwürdig sein und glaubwürdig bleiben. Dabei gilt weiterhin, wir wollen keinen Konflikt zwischen Russland und der NATO. Deshalb sind sich alle Unterstützer der Ukraine seit Beginn des Krieges einig, wir schicken keine eigenen Soldaten in die Ukraine. Zugleich müssen Putin und die Militärs in Moskau verstehen, wir, das stärkste Militärbündnis der Welt, sind in der Lage, jeden Quadratmeter unseres Bündnisgebiets zu verteidigen.
Well, President Joe Biden has termed the existence of NATO as critical for the U.S. His comments came as he asserted that as long as there is NATO, the U.S. has allies which help it defend to any future challenges. The remarks underscored the urgency of passing a $95 billion foreign aid package for U.S. allies.
As long as there's NATO, we have allies that are competent and have defended us. And by the way, the only time Article 5 has been invoked is when we were attacked on 9/11. So the idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split is totally against the interests of the United States of America, and it is against our word we've given since all the way back to Eisenhower. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO. It's critical. Our security depends on it.
Earlier, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the Commission will present a defense industrial strategy proposal in 3 weeks.
Mehr investieren.
We must invest more, we must invest better, and we must invest European, which is why we as the EU Commission will next month present a strategy on the European defense industry.
Zur europäischen
And now an update on expansion of NATO membership. Hungary could ratify Sweden's NATO membership at the start of its spring session, set to begin on February 26th. Hungary is the only NATO member yet to ratify Sweden's application to join the alliance, which it filed following Russia's 2022 full-scale offensive in Ukraine.
Together with the Swedish Prime Minister, we have taken important steps to restore confidence. We are going in the direction that at the start of Parliament's spring season, we can ratify Sweden's accession to NATO.
Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry said Ukrainian forces left Avdiivka and were entrenched at the nearby Avdiivka coke and chemical plant after Russian units took full control of the town in Ukraine's Donetsk region on Sunday. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said measures are being taken to completely clear the city of militants and to block Ukrainian units that have left the city. Ukrainian military withdrew its troops from the devastated town. The advancement in Avdiivka was Moscow's biggest advance since it took the city of Bakhmut last May. Well, Britain will give an additional 18-month extension for Ukrainian visa holders who are eligible to stay in the United Kingdom. The first visas, which granted 3 years leave in the UK under programs such as Homes for Ukraine, the Ukraine Family Scheme and the Ukraine Extension Scheme, are set to expire in March 2025. The extension means those who came on the first visas under one of the Ukraine visa schemes could now stay in the UK until September 2026 and have the same rights to access work, benefits, healthcare and education. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Second day of Bharatiya Janata Party National Convention meet PM Modi to address valedictory session shortly. And in cricket, India in dominant position as lead extends 440 on fourth day of the third test against England in Rajkot.
The one common theme between all major cities across the world is hope and the promise of new opportunities and possibilities that gravitates people towards them.
The reason why we advocate green transformations is because you can retain the building and you can actually modify.
There's a lot that happens when you extract sand beyond sustainable limits. It's going to change your course of your river, it's going to widen the channel, it's going to damage, and we are paying a big price.
We have 2 water reservoirs on 84 acres of land. During periods when the river water is non-saline, we store water in these reservoirs. Throughout the year, we distribute this water to residents.
Tiny houses are in vogue. Less is more. Many also assume tiny homes are more eco-friendly.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, updates regarding Israel-Hamas conflict now. Israeli President Isaac Herzog met with the Prime Minister of Qatar, who has been trying to mediate a ceasefire in the Gaza conflict. Herzog also urged for the release of hostages to remain a top priority on the world's agenda. He addressed to the audience at Munich Security Conference, where a group of family members of hostages were demonstrating with posters calling for the release of their relatives captured by Hamas. The Egyptian and Qatari mediated talks to try to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and secure the release of over 100 Israeli hostages being held in Hamas have yet to produce results. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he had sent negotiators for truce talks in Cairo as requested by US President Joe Biden, but they did not go back for further talks because Hamas demands were delusional. He said there was no point in further negotiations until Hamas makes changes to its demands.
This negotiation requires a firm stand. I must tell you, citizens of Israel, that until this moment, right up until this moment, the demands of Hamas are delusional. They want to defeat Israel. Of course, we will not agree to them, but when Hamas drop these delusional demands, we can move forward. We will continue fighting until all goals are achieved.
Well, political uncertainty persisted in Pakistan as thousands of supporters of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party took to the streets protesting alleged poll rigging during the country's general elections. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf supporters protested in the capital, Islamabad, and Karachi and Peshawar. In Lahore, police briefly detained lawyer Salman Akram Raja, who contested the polls as an independent candidate backed by the PTI. He was later released. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf leaders addressed a press conference in Islamabad on the alleged rigging, calling it a massive assault on democracy. Khan and his party say that the election results were rigged, who should have won even more seats. The caretaker government and Pakistan's Election Commission have rejected the allegations and said the country has laws and systems to investigate specific complaints. Well, former U.S. President Donald Trump launched his own line of sneakers at the SneakerCon convention a day after he was ordered to pay nearly $355 million over a New York civil fraud conviction. The convention was held in the city of Philadelphia in the northeastern state of Pennsylvania. After leaving Philadelphia, Trump appeared at a rally in Michigan. Meanwhile, Trump's supporters braved freezing temperatures in Michigan as they waited to see the former president speak at the campaign rally. Several of his supporters said they weren't concerned about Trump's legal issues, with some charges saying the charges were bogus and politically motivated. Well, in Senegal, hundreds of people marched through the streets of country's capital, Dakar, on Saturday, the day after President Macky Sall postponed elections for his successor to obey a court order that overturned his declaration to postpone the upcoming presidential election. The Constitutional Council intervened, and the president, under growing pressure at home and abroad, vowed to organize the elections as soon as possible without any date being set. The crowd carried Senegalese flags and scarves, picket signs, and shouted slogans like Macky Sall is a dictator and no to postponement. Well, African leaders at the 37th African Union Summit are prioritizing peace, development and integration. The two-day summit of the 55-member bloc, which concludes on the 18th of February, comes as the continent wrestles with coups, conflicts, political crisis and regional tensions. DD India's Isaac Lucando has more on this.
The summit unveiled the Union's theme for this year, which focuses on providing education and skills for 21st century Africa. With the continent projected to have the youngest and largest workforce globally by 2050, leaders are emphasizing quality education for Africans. Another burning issue at the summit is the resurgence of military coups. criticism of the bloc's ineffectiveness in resolving conflicts on the continent persists. This is because efforts to influence countries facing recent coups have not borne much fruit. The focus of the 55-member bloc has also extended to reforming the global financial architecture. Leaders at the summit have committed to establishing an African monetary union and related financial institutions. They say these initiatives aim to foster hope for Africa's 1.2 billion people. Isaac Lukando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
Well, in the wake of the cholera outbreak in Zambia, India sends humanitarian assistance to the country. The aid, weighing approximately 3.5 tons, comprised water purification supplies, chlorine tablets and ORS sachets, was handed over by Indian High Commissioner to the government of Zambia. Zambia has been reeling under an outbreak of cholera over the past few weeks, which had prompted a closure of schools in the country. The outbreak began in the Zambian capital region and by early January 2024 had killed around 333 people. And with an aim to boost bilateral ties between India and Taiwan, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the two countries to enable Indian migrant workers to work in Taiwan. The MOU promises mutual benefits for the people of both nations. The signing of agreement comes at a time when a labor-strapped Taipei looking to extend its foreign workforce outside its Southeast Asian sources. And at the invitation of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, will pay a state visit to India from 21st-22nd February 2024. Greece Prime Minister will be the chief guest and keynote speaker at the 9th Raisina Dialogue 2024 in New Delhi. Visiting PM will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and PM Mitsotakis will hold bilateral discussions. India and Greece relations have been elevated to strategic partnership during PM Modi's visit to Greece in August 2023. This would be the first bilateral head of state or government level visit from Greece to India after 15 years. Well, India's ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party's National Convention meet underway in the national capital, New Delhi. It is a host of party leaders highlighted the government's development and cultural measures and various initiatives. Prime Minister Modi being felicitated by other BJP leaders there. The two-day meeting, which began on the February 17th, witnessed 11,500 delegates from across the country. On Saturday, passed a political resolution, Viksit Bharat Modi Ki Guarantee. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also scheduled to address the valedictory session of the meeting in a short while. And the Indian Air Force conducted Exercise Vayu Shakti-24 near Jaisalmer in Indian state of Rajasthan. The exercise saw the participation of Tejas, Prachand and Dhruv, as well as Rafale, Mirage 2000, Sukhoi 30 MKI and Jaguar, among others. The event began with 3 Chetak helicopters trooping the national flag and the Air Force ensign, flying past the grandstand with the national anthem playing in the background. This was followed by a perfectly timed sonic boom created by Rafale aircraft. In keeping with this year's theme of the exercise, lightning strike from the sky, over 120 aircraft displayed the IAF's offensive capabilities. And more than 50 countries are going to participate in the 12th edition of Milan exercise, which will be held at India's Visakhapatnam from Monday, that is February 19th. The 9-day exercise would be an excellent platform for the participating navies to share ideas to enhance security on the high seas and ensure safety of maritime commerce for growth and prosperity of all. In addition to building bridges of friendship and strengthening of relationships, the exercise would enhance interoperability, enable exchange of best practices and will boost confidence to undertake missions together in the future to tackle common challenges. And Shubman Gill fell agonizingly short of 100, but India extended their overall lead to 440 at lunch on day 4 of the third test against England. India had been in the box seat since grabbing a handy first innings lead of 126, and they were sitting pretty at 314 runs for loss of 4 wickets at the lunch break, threatening to bat England out of the contest. Yashasvi Jaiswal, who retired hurt after completing a century on Saturday, returned to bat and was on 149 with Sarfaraz Ahmed on 22 at the other end. Spinner Ravichandran Ashwin, who flew home on Friday following a family emergency, has also reunited with the squad. Gill was run out for 91 after a misunderstanding with Kuldeep, and the former's desperate dive was not enough to save him. Rehan Ahmed dismissed Kuldeep, but India remained in control of the contest. The 5-test series is level at 1-1. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.